I wanted to do a video specifically about how to tune the snare drum. There are so many schools on this. There are so many ideas and ways to think about tuning your snare drum. This isn't a video about how to play your snare real fast. I have those on some other previous videos and exercises that you can do to build your speed that will greatly help you. Just so you know, I use those same exercises myself all the time. The one thing about a snare drum is that so many different variations. There's wood, there's copper, there's just a standard chrome snare. Some people even have a gold snare. There are different types of wood, there are different types of metals, there are different rims, there are different strainers, and sometimes it's the atmosphere in the room. Sometimes the shape of the room, you know, how tall the ceilings are, how close the walls are to you, what's on the walls. There's so many different variables. And then it comes down to how much ring do you want on the snare drum? How much do you want it to resonate? What does the engineer want to hear from your snare drum? That's the reason why most recording studio drummers have sometimes a whole case of snare drums. So today I'm just going to go over just some basics about tuning. And there are many different schools about this, but this is a very, very important one. All right, this is where I would start. Okay, so let's go over just some parts of the snare. Most of you already know this, but I'm going to show you anyway, okay? So we have the batter head and the rim. I actually like a thicker rim, but this is the Yamaha Stage Custom snare. I love this snare. I have used this snare on so many sessions. I've actually put away quite a few of my expensive snares and defaulted to this snare almost more than any other snare that I have. Okay, so we've got the batter head, the rim, the lugs. We have the strainer, all right? So the strainer, you can throw it off, put it on, and then we have the snare head. This is the snare side head, and then the snares, okay? I'm a big fan of the Remo heads, but I also like Evans heads. How you decide which head that you want to put on your drum, you're going to have to think about that and say, what tone am I looking for? If you want a crisp, real resonant sound, you might want to put an ambassador on your snare, and then you will maybe tune it quite a bit higher to where it will have some juice to it. This specifically is like just a Remo black. This is actually what came with the snare. I didn't buy it new, I bought it used. I'm going to tell you something about buying used snares. Okay, first of all, let me just tell you something about this guy. Okay, you can see the badge. All right, you see the Yamaha badge. That badge is embossed. It's actually lifted. It's not just a print like they used to put on some of their old Stage Customs. This is actually a quality badge that looks really, really good. You almost think that it's like some of the newer, you know, like maybe the Birch Customs or Absolute Maple Customs or whatever, but it's just the Stage Custom. Drums have come a long way. The drums that you buy now, the lowest line drums that you buy now, are in some cases equal to the best of the best drums that we used to buy when I was a kid. Drums have really come a long way. These Stage Customs are incredible. I'm a very, very, very big fan of these drums. Now, the drums that I play in the studio are either a recording custom Yamaha or a Birch Absolute custom. I have actually played Stage Customs and Tour Customs as well, but the Stage Customs will give you everything that you need as long as you have it tuned right. Okay, when I got this, I ordered this. I actually got this from Guitar Center, and I knew what it looked like because I saw the picture before I bought it. And when I got it It was really nasty. If you want your snare drum and the hardware to last a long time, wax it. Take it completely apart, and that's what I did. I took this completely apart, and lug by lug by lug and rim by rim, I completely waxed it, and then I waxed the shell. This black used to be really ugly when it first got to me. The only reason why I got it for as cheap as I did was because it was seriously ugly. I don't know who had it. It doesn't have scratches on it. It looks amazing. But when I got it, it looked horrible. So I ended up taking it apart, waxing it. And after you wax your drum, if you do it when you get your drum kit the very first time, if you wax all of your hardware, including your cymbal stands, you don't want to wax the pedals where you put your feet, but wax all of your hardware and all of your tom lugs, your tom rims, your snare lugs, your snare rims. All take the bass drum hoops off, wax those. If you do that, your drums will last almost infinitely. For example, I have a Yamaha recording custom drum set that I have since then gifted it to my nephew, who has become a very accomplished drummer. But when I got that, I waxed everything. There's not an ounce of rust on that drum kit. And mostly because when I waxed it, I first got it, I waxed it, and then a few years later, it started getting really dirty, I waxed it again. Took it apart, especially when you are going to put new heads on it, that's the best time to wax it again. That drum set, aside from a couple different dings and scratches, still looks almost brand new. There's actually a guy on YouTube, Dean, he has the same kind of kit, and his is in immaculate condition. And Dean, you know I'm talking about you. So I'm a big fan of this drum. This is a great drum. Okay, so now what I did with this drum that's different than, it is a wood drum, and the Yamaha Stage Custom drums, they specifically are birch. You think Stage Custom is just going to be an okay kit, but they're pretty awesome. Okay, now I cranked this bottom head, and this is what you do. You tighten the bottom head almost as much as you can before you think that it might pop. Okay. This is a little trick that I learned from a guy named Robert Hall. I used to not tune my snare drum like this. I used to take, and this is how we were taught. Okay, this is how everybody wanted their snare drum to sound like Steve Gadd. So you would tighten up, you not all the way, but you would tighten up the lugs around the drum, and then you would take the two lugs that are beside the snares, you would loosen them up. And excuse me, that's how Steve Gadd tuned his snare. That's how a lot of people do it. That's how, even today, that's probably still how Steve Gadd tunes his snare, the bottom snare. Again, this is the snare head we're talking about, not the batter head. Okay, and then on the top, you want to tune it. So I'm going to show you. This is how we do this. As soon as you put the head on, when it's new, the head is going to stretch. You don't want it to stretch out prematurely. It's like you have to give it a chance to stretch naturally, okay? Because once it stretches out, you can't unstretch it, okay? It can't go back to its original form. It's going to be stretched out, and that's it. And so what we do is we put the snare head on, and then we put our finger in the center, and then you... Okay, this one is actually a little bit low. So now there's a lot more you'll want to do than this, but when you first get it, so again, that's low. So sometimes it's on the other side. It may not be that side, it may be over here. I don't think it's over here though, I think it's here. Okay, so again, It's still low. Dum, 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 dum. So you can hear that this is still lower. Now, sometimes it's not bad for it to be lower, but let's just do this. Now I took this head is on tight. The head on my other drum is not. You can hear this. I actually have some muffling on it because I use that primarily for recording. So, and you go all the way around. Now, when you first put the drum head on, I should have told you this first. When you first put the drum head on, you want to, when you want to start cranking it down, you start on one side, and then you go to the opposite side, and you crank, maybe like a half turn, and then go to the very next lug, and turn that half or a whole if it's a brand new head, but make sure you do it evenly all the way around. So a half here, a half here, a half here, a half here, then a half here, half, and then half, and then half. So you cross it. As soon you just end up crossing it and making sure that it's all the same. And then you'll start again. You'll do it all the way again. Half, 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 and so on and so forth. So that's how you start to put your top head on. Obviously, you want it to not have any wrinkles. You have to have the wrinkles out of your snare. Start where it's maybe a half turn, and keep going. You might get to where you say, well, I only want a quarter turn. So you'll do a quarter turn, a quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn, and then go around and then go all the way around the drum, and with your finger in the center, very lightly, just lightly touching the center so that it keeps some of the resonance from continuing on, so that you can hear the tone in front of each lug. Once you hear that tone in front of each lug, and you know that it's close. If you hear something real low or real high, you'll want to tighten that maybe even a little bit more. Some rims don't come in perfect. This one actually has a little, like this one was hit right here. So I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but I was okay with it. You know, I figured, well, later on I'll get another rim, but then after I started tuning it, it was fine. So it's relatively the same. Okay. So now, having said that, get it to where it's even, and then to where the tone's right. And then you say, okay, now how do I want it pitched? What type of music am I going to play? Am I going to play rock and roll? Am I going to play jazz? Am I going to play funk? Am I going to, whatever type of music, am I going to play country or whatever? Although a lot of current country, you could almost use the same snare drum as you could rock or funk and maybe even jazz. I mean, country is very universal today. Country is way different than it used to be. Okay, so that's how you want to tune your top head. If you want to play rock, you know, some people like to have their snare drum sounding real flat, like more of a dead sound. Now that's how I use this for jazz as well, but that's how I have this. Okay, now that's just, there's very little ring to it. On this one, what I did was I took a piece of tape, and this is just gator tape. It's like gator duct tape. So you take it and then you fold a crease in it like this, and then with that crease you set it on the edge of the drum where you're not going to hit. You can even let the corners touch the rim. That way you know that it's going to keep a little bit more out. But here, I'll show you this real fast. There's no other, and of course remember this is going to be tuned high because I use this for like maybe some real high pitched rock stuff. So this has got a really nice crack to it. Okay, and as opposed to this. So, 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 you can see, depending on the song that you're playing, depending on the track, depending on the engineer, that's a big one, he's going to want a certain type of a sound. Now, I'm also an engineer, so I can tell you that you can almost do anything with EQ. You can, as we say in the engineering world, you can polish a turd with good EQ. If something sounds bad, I mean, I can make a thud. I can make that sound like a kick drum. You can almost make anything sound good. However, as an engineer, you like to have a good starting point. Okay, so now this has a lot of ring to it, but if I put my wrist over it, to stop the ring, it has a nice crack with not a lot of ring, but I don't want this snare drum for that. I want this snare drum to have tonality. I already have this, and I have it tuned down a little bit lower. Now I want this. So that's just with the piece of tape. It's hard for me to do it. This snare sounds really good. Has a thing to it. And if I put it on the I like having the ring on the outside of the snare. And then in the center, I like that. I like that in a snare. Now, one of the things that a lot of drummers do, in addition to maybe a piece of tape, is they'll go and they'll buy a muffle kit that has rings that you set on the drum. They work okay, but I can honestly tell you, I mean, I have one on here, but it's a real thin ring. And I actually just have a piece of tape. Well, it was being held down by that metal aluminum tape, but it's not anymore. This snare has a little moon gel on it, and moon gels are extremely important for your drums. Great for your snare, great for your toms. You can put them anywhere. You can use them or not use them. You can, without them losing their integrity to hold onto the drum, you can put it a little bit off the edge, or you can put it right on the edge. You can let it touch the rim or just set it on there. And the moon gels are great because when you hit them, they don't fly off. They'll just keep the drum sounding real natural. So like, and then I'll just take the moon gel from this one and I'll set it here. Yeah, it drastically stops the ring. Okay, but I like, on this drum, I like the ring. Yep, so I hope that helps you out a lot. This is the best way to tune your drums. Again, the bottom head, as tight as you can stand it. As tight as you can do it. Don't pop it. Whatever you do, don't pop it. Just make it real tight. And then when it's a brand new head, you won't want to tighten it all the way. Tighten it pretty tight and then let it stretch. And you'll hear the head, you'll hear it go pop, pop, pop. And that's normal. It's just stretching out. That's normal. It's not breaking or anything. And then go back and put your finger in the center of the bottom head. Try to make the bottom head tuned just like you do the top, but crank it pretty good. Don't put any muffling on the bottom, okay? But then on the top, put your top on and slowly make it tight, and then make it just to your preference. And then put tape or moon gels on to deaden it to your desire. All right, so I hope that helps you out a lot. this is definitely something that would have helped me out a long time ago. I'll see you on the next video. Cheers.